Hey everyone, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. So today we are talking about tech salaries again. You all really love the video that I posted a couple weeks back, but what I noticed in that video and in other videos in my channel is that sometimes there's a little bit of skepticism about tech salaries, if these salaries are real, because you'll often see on YouTube that people are talking about these lower to mid six-figure salaries, sometimes even seven-figure salaries in tech. And a lot of people are curious, are these salaries real? Who is making these salaries? So in this video, we're going to be doing a deep dive in the factors that really influence your tech compensation. Before I get started on this video, I do want to say that right now, data on tech salaries is a little bit like murky. You have self-reported data on levels.fyi and then some data on different job posting websites. I feel like there's no conclusive data about this is how much tech salary people in tech make. So there's sometimes a wide range in the salaries we see around. So if you're someone who's starting off in tech, don't just assume that oh, you're just going to be making high six figures, seven-figure salaries. This video, we'll talk about the factors that really impact tech salaries. Let's get started. So as a developer in the US, one of the biggest factors that influences tech salary is your location. We all know that US people in tech tend to make more money than their counterparts abroad, but even in the US, there are a select few cities where you'll see the highest level of tech salaries, and it's not abnormal for a junior level person to be making six figures or a senior level person to be making in the mid six figures, sometimes even seven-figure range. The fact that your salary can sometimes be based on your location isn't even a secret. Companies like Google are allowing people to work remotely, will adjust your salary based on where you're located in the US. So right now, the top tech salaries are located in about 3 cities and a couple other smaller cities too. The places where you'll see the highest tech salaries are SF Bay Area, New York City, and in Seattle. And there are 3 major reasons why these cities have one of the highest tech salaries in the nation. One of the biggest factors is the fact that these cities are expensive. You can't bring a Kansas salary to New York and expect to be able to live on a Kansas salary. New York City is an extremely expensive city. There is a very high cost of living in this city where you have 1 bedrooms going for over $3,000, and it's perfectly normal. For tech companies to actually be competitive, they just have to have a higher salary so people can actually live in this city and they can work in this city, and they also need to have a high salary to be competitive in these high cost of living areas. But it's a double-edged sword because even if you're making more money in these high cost of living areas, you have to think about the fact that things are just more expensive here, so your money doesn't go as far. It's very expensive to live here, and you'll find people who make six-figure salaries living with roommates and living like college students because the city is just expensive. So it's something to consider when you're looking at these tech salaries, is the fact that high cost of living areas, your dollar doesn't go as far. Another reason why location has a huge impact on your tech salary is the fact that a lot of these tech companies have multiple locations in these different areas. Let's take New York City, for example. There are thousands and thousands of tech companies in the New York City area. Same with the Bay Area. You have a ton of companies that are headquartered there, that have satellite offices there. In these areas, you have not only big tech companies, but you have startups that need developers and need tech workers. So that means that there's a lot of competition. These companies, to be competitive, they have to lure talent into their company, and one of the ways they do that is by offering higher and higher compensation and competing with different tech companies to offer a higher compensation. So the fact that you just have a ton of tech companies in a small area means that they have to consistently increase their salaries to be competitive and to get talent. And speaking of talent, these areas tend to also have a lot of talented people. You have some of the top universities in this area. You have people who move to be in the headquarters of these tech companies. So the talent in these high cost of living areas tends to be a little bit higher just because there are people moving in to be a part of these tech companies, and there are also a lot of universities and a lot of talent in this area. If you're someone who wants to make more money in tech, maybe the solution to making more money in tech is to try to get a job in the Bay Area, in New York, or in Seattle. But again, it's a double-edged sword because not a lot of people will be comfortable living in these major metropolitan areas. I know for me, I would never ever move to the Bay Area, and I'm not moving to Seattle. After I visited those cities, I realized that those cities are too flavorless. There's not enough diversity for me. So that's why I personally like New York, but I know a lot of people also think New York is a horrible place. So yeah, you just have to weigh the pros and cons to decide what makes sense for you. So before we hop on to the next section of this video, I do want to thank the sponsor of this video, Career Karma. Thanks Career Karma for sponsoring this video. If one of your goals this new year is to break into tech and you are choosing the tech bootcamp route, check out Career Karma. There you can get matched to a top bootcamp. Career Karma is an online community with resources you'll need to get into a tech career in 2022. There you'll find unbiased and detailed reviews of all bootcamps by former bootcamp students, live audio rooms with bootcamp students, grads, and tech industry experts, and bootcamp matching based on your learning preferences. Career Karma is free and always will be, so click the link in the description box and start looking at bootcamps. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to sign up and get matched to a bootcamp will get a free coaching session package to set you up for success. Go to ck.chat/Bacola to get started. So another factor that can influence your tech compensation and might be the reason for these high 6-figure, sometimes 7-figure tech salaries is stock appreciation. We've been in a bull market for several years now. Like a lot of people are like, when is there going to be a recession? Tech workers have truly benefited from the stock appreciation and this bull market that we've been having. If you remember in my last video about tech compensation, I talked about how your equity that you're given as part of your compensation can be up to 50% or even more of your compensation. So as you can imagine, 50% of your salary is coming from equity, and then in a year's time, your company's stock increases 50%. You can imagine how much that can increase your salary. But again, this is a double-edged sword because while there are some companies where your salary has increased because of stock appreciation, there are other places where your salary or your tech compensation can actually decrease due to stock depreciation, like in Snapchat and also in Robinhood. And speaking of Robinhood, another reason why you might see these high 6-figure, sometimes 7-figure tech salaries is because these are just early employees at a company that was acquired, or maybe they're early employees at a company that has exited successfully. So they have a lot of shares and they have a lot of equity that is vesting at a higher rate. I talked about this a lot in my last video, but you can see when you're joining a startup, you're taking on a lot of risk, and most startups fail. And the startups that successfully exit, there is no guarantee that you're actually going to make a lot of money from a successful exit. But there are some employees that this risk actually pays off significantly for them, and they exit a company making a lot of money. So that's another reason why someone might have a high 6-figure, sometimes 7-figure salary, is the fact that they're an early employee and their risk that they took has paid off. Another thing that can impact tech salaries is understanding if tech workers are a cost center or a revenue generating center of the business of the company. The tech industry is honestly so vague. You have your big tech companies, your FAANG companies, you have your startups, you have your finance companies, you have your telecom companies. There are so many companies that go into this bucket called tech. But not every company is going to value their tech workers in the same way. And one of the ways you can figure out if tech workers are actually valued at the company is understanding how much tech workers are going to influence the revenue of the company. So for example, in finance, you have Goldman Sachs and you have Two Sigma as example companies. Goldman Sachs revenue is generated mostly by their bankers, not by their developers, depending on what part of Goldman Sachs you work at. But generally, the revenue is impacted mostly by their bankers. Therefore, Goldman Sachs developers might not make as much as you would think given the prestige of the company because their developers aren't revenue generating part of their company. Whereas in Two Sigma, which is a hedge fund and their strategy is based on the work of developers, they're going to value tech workers much more. And you'll see that they'll have higher compensation, higher salaries for tech workers because the tech workers are directly related to their revenue. So that's why it's important, maybe if you're someone who is working at a company that doesn't really value tech workers, maybe to make more money, you just have to switch to another company where they value tech workers. Now let's move on to the next factor, which is the fact that you're just at a high level or you're a senior person at the company. This is probably the most obvious factor. At different tech companies, you have different levels. Let's take Google, for example. Junior developers are usually like L3, mid-level developers are usually L4, senior L5. The higher up you are in your level, the more compensation you're going to earn. And the difference between levels can be over $100,000 in compensation. Sometimes when you're interviewing for companies and maybe you've passed on the next round, it's worth it sometimes to advocate that you're put in a higher level because that will really increase your compensation significantly. So yeah, another factor about why tech workers are making money is maybe they're just at a senior level at the company. Therefore, their skill set and their impact is compensated at a higher rate. And the final reason reason for a higher tech compensation is the fact that maybe the person has in-demand and rare skills. For example, if you're someone who's doing machine learning, which is extremely in-demand and rare skill to build, and also to find people who have those skills, then your compensation tends to be a lot higher than a front-end developer or a back-end developer. So sometimes being very highly specialized can mean more money for you and can put you in a higher compensation range. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful and I hope you learned a little bit more about tech compensation. If you like this video, don't forget to tap that like button, smash that subscribe button to show this channel some love, and I'll see you guys next time.